Morgan. I'm with Valcom. We're based in Utah. We are a solution provider and an event sponsor at SAINTCON this year and last year, and excited to be with you. We have a great partner, Zscaler, that is going to present today. And Zscaler is one of our premier cybersecurity partners, helping our customers be more secure and profitable. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Really quick, guys, my name is Jared Scott. I'm the account executive that covers the state of Utah, so all state and local accounts. With me here is Ernie Lemke. He's actually going to do the presentation. Just wanted to say thank you for being here. We really appreciate the chance to speak to any crowd about what we do, and enjoy.
Wait. On off, y'all. Turn that one off. Good morning, everybody. Ernie Lemke. I'm the solutions engineer covering the West. I've been at Zscaler for about 4 years. This morning, we're going to talk about zero trust and AI in our platform. Probably two terms that you don't hear many vendors talk about, right? So I'll try not to get too vendor-y or salesy. I'll try to keep it a little bit techy and interesting. How many are familiar with Zscaler? Just show of hands. Okay, cool. Cool. I thought I would actually start with a background, though, for some of those that aren't. Zero Trust Exchange is a marketing term that we use for our cloud, right? So a little background on us. Vision and founding over the last few decades, right? There's been a lot of new technologies, or maybe not new technologies, but more prevalent use of certain technologies, especially after the pandemic. Work from anywhere, leveraging cloud, accelerated, right, over the last few years. So what that has done is it's kind of disrupted the old hub and spoke, castle and moat type of architecture and approach to security. How we used to secure everything's behind our perimeter. Now we don't control the network, aka the internet. We don't control our data center anymore, aka the cloud, right? So we've been around for about 14 years, and we started building our own data centers. We kind of saw this coming. We didn't see the pandemic coming, but we saw the shift in that type of work from anywhere model, right? And that's how Zscaler was founded. So the traditional architecture now is a lot more expensive, a lot more east-west firewalls, a lot more routing, a lot more security stacks in different locations, et cetera. So there's a lot more administrative overhead, and a lot more vulnerabilities you have to manage, right? So, and user experience now with a lot of backhauling and things like that based on the current modern architecture. So that's kind of what Zscaler addresses is, essentially moving security as close to the user or the device as possible. And next top is always our cloud, which is a security stack in the cloud, relieves the need for backhauling and VPNing everything back to go through an on-prem security stack. So how does zero trust architecture work? So how does Zscaler say it works? I know every vendor has a different model, but on this slide, you'll see at the bottom, regardless of where the traffic is being originated from, we have a few ways to get the traffic to our cloud, right? So from a workforce perspective, we have a lightweight agent, and it is just a lightweight agent. It intercepts the traffic, sends the traffic to our cloud, and all the policy and decryption and everything happens in the cloud, so there's no impact. For workload, IoT, partner traffic, things like that, you can kick the traffic over GRE and IPsec tunnels to our cloud where the magic happens. We are a full proxy architecture. So what that means is next top is our cloud and we are a proxy. So first thing we do is terminate that connection, right? And break it open and do SSL inspection at scale for as much traffic as you want to send to us. As soon as we break it open, the first thing we do is we send that request to your IDP where you can enforce your conditional access policies, your MFA, some of your posture checking. So you control not only the identity, but also the context, right, of the user that's connecting. So as we go up the zero trust stack, once your IDP sends back that SAML assertion to us with attributes and saying that it passed all your conditional access policies, we figure out where are you going? And what that means is what application or destination do you need to be connected to? Not what network do you need to be connected to, right? So what this does obviously is it prevents lateral movement. Traditional VPNs, you drop someone, you connect someone to your network behind your firewall, and then they pinky promise not to move laterally, right? So once we determine what your destination is, we use AI, threat feeds, posture checking, things like that to always determine based on that session a risk profile for that connection. And every time a new session comes up, we do this analysis again, right? So maybe you've hopped, you're connecting to the same application, but now you're hopped to a different network or something like that, your risk level might change, right? So once we determine the risk of that connection, based on the risk of that connection, what action, according to your policy, do we take? And on the left-hand side, you'll see connections to destinations managed by others. That's intranet and SaaS, right? So since we did the SSL decryption, we've run through the Zero Trust Exchange, we wrap it back up, encrypt it again, and send it on to its destination. So the destination would see our cloud as the originating source. So now your user is hidden behind the proxy. Now for private apps, we do it a little bit different. So this is connections to destinations managed by you, right? Whether they're on-prem in your data center or in the cloud. How we do that is we stand up a virtual appliance in front of all your applications, kind of a reverse proxy method where that appliance will then communicate with your applications or your destinations. And then our cloud will stitch these two egress 443 tunnels together. So everything, that connector is always communicating 443 outbound. No more punching holes in the firewall, no more having to stand up servers in your DMZ and make them publicly accessible. So now you have an attack surface. So now all your applications are dark and hidden behind our app connectors. All right, so based on that, this is kind of the comparison on the left-hand side where some firewall vendors talk about doing SASE, and VPNs, unfortunately, like I said, are more like bridges where you drop folks on the network and you have to stand up a bunch of east-west firewalls and hire a couple people to manage all those rules and all that routing. And so there's an attack surface. Every front door of those firewalls now is an attack surface, and there's direct network access by the users, etc. As opposed to the Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange on the right-hand side, it's more like a switchboard, right? So it has to go through that stack every time, and then it only goes to the destination. So it's true user-to-app segmentation instead of the old school traditional VPN way of backhauling or dropping folks on the network. All right. So based on the architecture, these are essentially the entities. We already talked about securing the workforce, right? User to app segmentation, securing BYOD. We'll dig a little bit deeper into all these in a minute. Eliminating VDI, eliminating VPN. And then we can also do this for workload segmentation, right? Similar concept where all connections to our cloud are inside out, never punching holes directly into your cloud. And we can have workloads talk to each other in a zero trust manner. IoT, OT, a lot of folks don't know that we've done a lot in this area. Essentially, like I said, the IoT, OT is expanding greatly. Everything's got an IP address now, especially these operational technology. We have ways now to, and I'm going to dig deeper into it, to manage this in a secure way in a zero trust manner. This is device segmentation. And then finally, B2B. So your partners standing up portals, maybe you're standing up portals for your partners to access your applications. We can do that in a secure way following that zero trust proxy architecture. We are a multi-tenant architecture, so that's why it's in our name, right? That's why we can scale with no impact to the user experience. And comparing that to a firewall vendor that's doing scaling for connections when all of our nodes are clustered. Sometimes firewall vendors, virtual firewalls, the way they scale is they have to spin up on demand another firewall. And sometimes that takes a good 10, 15 minutes to do that. So we don't have to spin up any firewalls. So And because we are multi-tenant and clustered, we are highly resilient. The agent I was talking about that's on the endpoint for the users always knows how to pick the closest, healthiest data center to go to. And it also knows automatically if you're on the trusted network, so on-prem, or if you're off the trusted network, or even doing split tunnel with a VPN. So based on those entities protected, these are kind of the four areas of our platform. In the top left-hand corner, this is what most folks know about Zscaler, so cyber threat protection. So this would be your traditional secure web gateway, your traditional VPN alternative. This is what folks know a lot about Zscaler, and we talked about that, right? Eliminating the attack surface, preventing lateral movement, malware detection, advanced threat protection, command control protection, things like that. But we've also done, I've been here about 4 years, we've done a lot in data protection in the last 2.5 years. So because we can do full SSL inspection at scale, which you require to apply data protection effectively, let's say you're not doing SSL inspection on that traffic like it's Office 365 traffic or something like that, you can use those same DLP policies to scan that data once it lands at rest in OneDrive, Dropbox, something like that. We also do, you can use those same engines and dictionaries. You can apply those to endpoint data protection and Gen AI, right? So you can apply those same DLP policies to Gen AI prompts. Some of the URL filtering, cloud app control like CASB, you can control a lot of your access to those Gen AI applications also. Zero trust networking. So we've talked a little bit about this, but it's effectively eliminating SD-WAN, the traditional SD-WAN model, which is attack surfaces and routing and complex administrative overhead, things like that, with that inside-outside approach. Using another connector, right? Something we call a branch connector, which is effectively like the app connector, but it's effectively a gateway that communicates out, and that's your default gateway for that branch. And then finally, because all of this traffic is going through your security stack in your Zscaler cloud, we can see all of that, and we can take action on that with our AI fabric and make risk decisions on that traffic, not just for connections, but also for business insights, like how many users are using this software, this application. Maybe that's a chance to reduce our licensing for that application, right? And get a little return on that we can invest somewhere else in our security stack. Unified vulnerability management. So that leverages the AI fabric that I'm talking about. You can feed all of via API, feed all of your threat feeds and your intel feeds from all of your security appliances, your security solutions into our cloud. And then you can do risk remediation prioritized by looking at the context of the connections and maybe the context of where the destinations are and if they're controlled, things like that. All right. And this is where a lot of our innovations have come a lot of the last few years. I've talked about some of these. Some of these were inherent of our advanced threat protection that's always been inside of our SWIG, right, or our cloud firewall, our next gen firewall. More of the network IPS using behavior-based plus signatures to take action on certain traffic. But with our AI fabric now, we can use all that other intel that's coming in from all the other user traffic and threat feeds and things like that to take more appropriate and automatic responses. For example, in data protection, we have a Microsoft Purview integration where we can ingest all of your Purview labels and tags and using our AI do auto classification for DLP, which makes it a lot easier to manage DLP. I'm gonna go too far into this based on the time. All right, so what I wanted to do is, if y'all remember, it was these four, right? I'm gonna dig into these real quick. So threat protection. Effectively, on the left-hand side, you'll see that's that egress traffic or that traffic from user to destinations managed by others. Left-hand side, you'll see the traditional security stack that you can replace and move to the Zscaler cloud that you no longer need to host on-prem and then VPN your users back through, right? And then on the right-hand side, you could think of this as the ingress, like users connecting to your applications, regardless of where they're hosted. This is the security stack on the right-hand side that you can eliminate. You no longer need those, or those consolidate those into Zscaler. Okay. Browser isolation. I think everybody knows what browser isolation is, but it's effectively, for whatever reasons, intercepting web traffic and redirecting it to a secure browser in our cloud that will make the connection for you on behalf of the user, and then do an HTML5 pixel streaming back to the user, where you can further secure upload, download, copy, paste, printing, and things like that. So this is a way to kind of address the BYOD challenge that sometimes folks throw a whole VDI infrastructure at. This is sometimes a much cheaper and easier way to do that. And so using AI, the way we can leverage isolation on the left-hand side is protection from cyber threats. So if a user's contacting a destination that might have a poor domain reputation, or a certain top-level domain, or it's uncategorized, but it's a newly revived domain, something like that, it can automatically do isolation. So it's just a pixel rendering for the user to secure them from drive-bys or something like that. And then on the right-hand side for data loss, same thing, unmanaged endpoints, contractors, third parties, vendors, something like that. You no longer have to issue them a laptop or a VPN account or something like that. They can connect to your applications in a secure manner, in a way where they can't pull down data or upload their own data, or even infect your network with their personal device. Deception. So for lateral movement, this is another use case to eliminate east-west firewalls. If, say, you're only doing the threat protection side, you're not doing maybe the VPN alternative side, we can spin up decoys. Think of old school honeypots, but these are just virtual decoys inside of our cloud that can automatically detect lateral movement and bad guys trying to attack a juicy looking Active Directory server or something like that. And the way I like to do that is, if you think about, this is the target, right? This is the target. The attacker's in the bottom left-hand corner. They can find a way to the target, right? Hopefully this is just your honeypot, not an actual production device. What we do in contrast with deception is we sprinkle decoys all over the network. And in old school, like, we can secure our network and our endpoints as much as we can. We only have to be wrong once, right, for them to find that vulnerability after they've sat in your network for a couple weeks and poked around. On the right-hand side with deception, they only have to be wrong once, because now all the decoys look like fresh meat. They'll go after one of them, and we know now you're pretty well assured that if someone is touching one of these decoys, it's probably a true positive. How much time do I got? Okay, cool. Data protection, I touched on this a little bit. So first, data in motion. This is the traditional DLP, right? If we're doing SSL inspection, we can then see into the traffic and apply the appropriate data protection. Gen AI security, I talked about that. Now we can look at those prompts, and we have an area of our reports and things like that. You can take action based on prompt. There's the data at rest. There's DSPM. It's like a component of CNAPP. So we had a more comprehensive type CNAPP solution. We've kind of paired that back to the DSPM solution, where we can do a discovery of all your data across all your clouds, and then based on that information, apply the appropriate policies. Endpoint DLP, still using that same agent. Again, all of this is one single agent, and there's no impact to the end user experience, because, like I said, it just sits on top of your TCP/IP stack like an adapter and just kicks all this traffic to our cloud. And then finally, browser isolation. We talked about that. So what sets data protection apart? Because we're inline, right? We're not letting patient zero through. There's no impact to the user experience. AI-powered classification, third-party app discovery. That was an acquisition a couple years ago. So sometimes you're controlling all your SaaS applications, but you forget about the browsers and the extensions that folks might be using their employee credentials to log into, right? And then access third-party extensions and things like that. So we can discover those and take appropriate action for you. Endpoint DLP. And we do have an incident workflow automation for DLP where you can set up rules where you can coach users and let them know, hey, you might not want to be sending this data out. And if you do need to send this data out, here's a workflow or how you can contact a certain individual that'll give you thumbs up before we let it go, things like that. Privileged access. So this is the third party or vendor administrator that used to get a laptop and a VPN account. Now we give them privileged access, which is effectively they log into the admin console. They only see a tile, right? It's like an Okta dashboard or a My Apps dashboard. They only see the tile for the applications they're supposed to get to. So here's your HVAC system tile administrator, third-party user. Once they're in, they see that tile, they click on it. Against your identity, you can still enforce MFA and conditional access, things like that. You can give them time-bound access. And then they can connect through the browser using RDP, SSH, VNC. Right. And again, this is leveraging that browser isolation. So everything's pixel streamed. So you can further restrict upload, download, copy, paste, things like that, file sharing. We can do credential injection. So we can do credential vaulting and hide credentials underneath those tiles. So they never need to know the credentials of an account on that destination system. They only needed to know the account you gave them. And then finally file sandboxing, session recording, and session proctoring too. So they think of a traditional BombGuard solution, or maybe even some components of a CyberArk or something like that. And again, they're only connecting to the cloud, right? They're never connecting to that destination system. We talked about this a little bit already. So user segmentation, workload segmentation, so cloud to cloud or within cloud, like VPC to VPC, branch segmentation, eliminating SD-WAN, and then finally, device segmentation. Recent acquisition called AirGap. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it effectively discovers all of the devices on your network. Big use case for this is IoT, and will effectively segment your network and make every device its own /32 VLAN. And then you can create policies between those using tags. It's really slick, really easy, a lot easier than firewalls. Because of time, I'm not going to go too much into this one, but the last column, AI-powered IoT discovery and classification, we did. Okay, so this is AirGap. So this is digging it a little bit deeper. So these are the use cases for AirGap, east-west firewall replacement, IoT, OT segmentation, but you can do this with servers and workstations. And it's the discover, right? So you put it on the network, there's no impact to users, and then you can roll devices on without impacting production, and then send that traffic again next hop to our cloud over IPsec or GRE tunnels. This is VDI replacement. Again, there is an attack surface with your VDI infrastructure. With Zscaler, there's no attack surface. And so we can use on the left-hand side, that client connector agent, like I said, single session VDI. On the right-hand side, there is a separate VDI agent for multi-session VDI that will be rolling into our single client. Risk management. I'm almost done, I promise, and then we'll do Q&A. Yeah, so this, I've already talked a lot about this already, right? So this is our security data fabric. We'd already been working on AR and had our own fabric for a long time. When we made a recent acquisition called Avalor, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Avalor, but it's Unified Vulnerability Management. And they at one point had the largest security fabric where that's what's connected to our cloud now, that we're doing these business insights, Risk 360, again, a lot of compliance, allowing you to do prioritize risk remediation, allowing you to align that with all your compliance mandates and things like that, right? Copilots, threat hunting. We have a threat hunting service too. It's kind of our managed service that we can help you do threat hunting based on that traffic that we're seeing. And again, all the traffic that goes through our cloud, we don't save any of it in our cloud. We don't save your credentials in our cloud. The only thing that's saved of your data in our cloud is your logs, and only you can access those logs through your portal. And the reason we can do SSL inspection at scale and we don't save this data is everything's done in memory. It never touches disk. And then this is kind of a geeky SecOps slide. We have multiple areas of our platform where we can do MITRE ATT&CK mapping. So I'd like to talk to somebody a little bit more in depth in this with a little bit more time. But based on that, on the left-hand side, it will say, okay, so based on these based on this kill chain, these are the areas that you might want to configure inside of the Zscaler platform to address these, TTPs or what have you. And that's it. Cool. Thanks. How many more minutes?
So about 4 minutes.
Okay. Any questions? I have 4 minutes.
So,
Yeah.
so after using the product for a year,
Mm-hmm.
I find that there are some features that it's either this or that could be expanded upon. And that some of the other security products that we use actually have a website that allows for the go and handpick requests and they book, they get their users to load them up so that they can bubble up to the top of the list on what for backend development or what you go up eventually. What is the possibility of that ever happening in these steps? Because they're just very close by wide.
So the way I handle that with my customers is I help manage those ERs with the customer, and then I am very vocal with the back end, the cloud ops team that makes those changes, and they prioritize them globally, right? So sometimes if one customer is requesting it based on the existing roadmap, I'm not a PM and I'm not a developer for a reason, right? So I do the best I can to advocate for my customer. I think I do maybe a good job of that compared to maybe some peers or something like that. But
You got a lot of customers. You got a lot of knowledge when it comes to ER. And
I manage all of them. Yeah.
it's man, your feature exams are just anything. It could be meant 5, 10, or maybe even 100 of them coming from different clients around the world.
We meet internally in the West. I don't know about the other regions, but I know in the West, at least SEs and our management, we meet monthly to talk about the existing ERs that are open for all of our customers. And as an SE for all of my accounts, I'm responsible to track those ERs. And then your TAM, if you have a post-sales resource, some accounts do, some accounts don't. If you don't, I'd be your post-sales resource engineer. We talk about those. Okay, that's it? Okay, cool. All right, thank you all.
Everyone.